This may seem like a strange prop, but this is my introduction to Darrell Barton. I would not have met the man if we had not started playing golf. What an introduction. What a man. What a man. Not like Larry, I had to make some notes for this. I couldn't do this without a couple of notes to follow. But I met Darrell in February of 2004 at Kicking Bird Golf Course. We were both signing up to play in the Senior Men's Golf Association. Unlike Larry's story about the camera being an extension of Darrell's brain, the golf club was not an extension of Darrell's brain. Somehow, we managed to win the first tournament that he and I played in. It was an alternate shot tournament, where one player hits the ball, the next player hits the next. So we won that tournament. And needless to say, that cemented our relationship because neither one of us had ever won anything in that association. So we were off to a good start. The only thing wrong with Kicking Bird Golf Course is they did not have recorders on the golf course. And I would give anything in the world if we could have had a recording of all the stories that Darrell Barton shared with me. And like I said, that was 2004, and he was my golf partner for 11 years. And that was almost every Thursday for 11 years. I had him sitting right next to me. I drove the cart because that gave Darrell something to complain about. And he did complain. He did complain. But one of those stories that I love to tell about Darrell was, I've never known anyone that traveled the world as much as Darrell Barton. What a man. All the places that he went, all the places he has seen. So I asked him one day, how many times have you been to Paris, France? He said, oh, I haven't the faintest idea. I said, well, think about it. 10 times? And he said, no, probably more like 20 times, I guess. I said, okay, I've been there, and I would like for you to share with me, from your photographer's perspective, what did you think of the view from the top of the Eiffel Tower? He said, I never went up there. I said, wait a minute. You've been to Paris 20 times. The Eiffel Tower is the tallest structure in the city of Paris, and you never went to the top of the Eiffel Tower? He said, no, they didn't pay me to go up there. Travel was a business for Darrell. He traveled all over the world, but he was not a tourist. I kept asking him about all those places that he went and things that I was familiar with because of the touristy stuff. And he never visited those things. And like Larry said, Darrell was a people man. He'd rather go sit down in a restaurant with a cup of coffee and talk to the locals rather than go see all those things that he could read about at home. He just didn't want to do that. When he volunteered for the Marines, the recruiter that was interviewing Darrell, I think, was interviewing him. But he told the recruiter, he said, I really want to be a photojournalist of this war. I want to record this war. I want to take pictures of it. And the recruiter said, no problem. We can take care of that. Darrell said he lied. But he had several stories about Vietnam that he shared with me, and one of those I thought was just perfect. He said 2 men were in the latrine. One was an airman, and one was a Marine. When they finished, they're getting ready to walk out, and the airman says to the Marine, in the Air Force, they taught us to wash our hands when we finish the restroom. And the Marine said, in the Marine Corps, they taught us not to pee on our hands. I invited Darrell to our house one time to take some pictures of my wife and I, and he took several photographs of the two of us together, and he took one photograph of my wife. He took 8 or 10 of me. She's a little more photogenic, thank goodness, than I. But when he delivered the prints, she said, I can die any time now because I have the perfect photograph for my obituary. Yes, you did. Catholic Charities in the Oklahoma Diocese is a recipient of Darrell's talents. The man was, as Larry said, phenomenal when it came to taking photographs and interviewing people. He was just, he was so natural at it. And Catholic Charities, was that 2006, I think, is when we did the program for Catholic Charities. And the program was called, now I'll find it here in a minute, The History of Giving and Stories of Hope. And Darrell and Miriam were the producers of that. And he interviewed all of the department heads of all the people at Catholic Charities. He took lots of photographs, he took lots of stills, he took lots of videos, and put that whole thing together, and it was absolutely phenomenal. They're still using it because it does such a beautiful job of telling anyone what Catholic Charities does in the state of Oklahoma. Our diocese has a mission in Atitlan, Guatemala. And I don't know how many times Darrell has been down there, but several times. And he told the story to me one time about taking Archbishop Salaka with him to Guatemala, to Atitlan. And he said, I think I'm probably going to be known as the only man in Oklahoma who lost an archbishop in Guatemala. Some little town, he managed to get separated from the archbishop, but he did get him back in one piece. But Darrell's talents are never ending, and the Catholic Church has been such a beautiful recipient of all that. And my parish it has a food pantry. And because of Marilyn and Darrell and their green thumbs, because, you know, the two of them can grow anything. Marilyn does herbs like you wouldn't believe. In their garden, you know, Darrell planted 300 tomato plants every year. 300 tomato plants. And they raised everything. You know, they had okra, they had cucumber squash, you name it. They just did everything. And they had a booth over at the farmer's market in Edmond. And every Wednesday and every Saturday, you could see that old truck of Darrell's at the farmer's market, and they sold merchandise there. And they had always had this, you know, Darrell was excellent at putting these signs on the front of his booth. You want to buy an ugly tomato? He advertised his ugly food a lot. But anything, you know, their standards were so high about what they put in that booth that if it was 2 days old and they didn't want it in their booth, they called me. Thank goodness, because our food pantry at St. Charles was a recipient of, I can't tell you how many pounds of food from those people. You know, he'd call and say, I have 40 pounds of okra. Could you use it? Oh, you betcha, little beaver. They fed more people with fresh produce than our food pantry ever put together from any other source. Beautiful job, Marilyn. You did a great job with that. And I asked Marilyn to do something for me because his old cars are something that I cherished very dearly, but I can't remember everything about his old cars because there were just too many facts. So I asked Marilyn to put this little tidbit together, and I'm just going to quote you, Marilyn, okay? Because this is, he loved his old cars. Darrell's love affair with cars, old cars, probably started when he was a youngster in Arkansas, driving the family's horse-drawn vegetable wagon to town. His family moved to Wichita, Kansas, a place where people built airplanes by day and then tinkered with cars in their spare time. Darrell had many old and new cars and trucks that came and went for various reasons over the years. He owned a wheat truck for a while, parking out of sight behind the house in Oklahoma City. If the neighbors couldn't see it, they couldn't complain. Last year, His collection included 8 cars. Only 3 could be considered modern. Of the other 5, 2 were project cars. He was building a street rod using 1940 Ford parts. Those cars are going home to Kansas, where friends are going to finish what he started. That leaves 3 oldies that run. His work truck, as he described it, at the farmer's market is a 1930 Model AA truck. He bought it at an auction in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It came from Merrill's Hambleton's Ford in Wichita, Kansas. He hauled it home in December of 1988. And as he arrived, it was getting dark and snowflakes were falling. In June of 1992, he found another Kansas treasure and brought home the 1931 Model A slant window 4-door sedan. His newest addition was the 1940 Ford Deluxe, brought home from Wichita, Kansas in May of 2014. Cars and trucks are just transportation. For Darrell, they were that and much more, so much more. They had their own stories. For now, he leaves us with these 3, his old favorite cars, where they reside in a building he had built just for them to protect them and shelter them, where his friends and family can see them and drive them. And the stories continue. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Darrell Barton. God bless you, brother.